My son slammed both hands on my kitchen table and shouted, "Dad, what have you done?" His face was red with anger, and two police officers stood behind him near the front door. Only 5 days earlier, I had begged him for $4,300 for cancer surgery, and he had told me there was no money for me, even though his company had just closed a $14 million deal. Now he had come to my house furious, demanding that I undo something that could destroy his career, his marriage, and everything he had built. But as I looked into his frightened eyes, one question burned inside me. Why was my successful son more afraid of the truth than he was of losing his own father? My name is Robert Miller. I am 68 years old, and until that week, I believed I understood my family. I had two children. My son Daniel was 42. He owned a growing construction company in Chicago. He wore expensive suits, drove a black luxury car, and lived in a house so large that I once got lost looking for the bathroom. My daughter, Emily, was 36. She worked as a nurse at a small clinic. She drove an old blue car that made a strange sound whenever she turned left. She lived in a two-bedroom apartment with her 10-year-old son, Noah. Daniel had money. Emily had bills. But when my life fell apart, the child with less gave me almost everything she had. It began 3 weeks before Daniel came storming into my kitchen. I had been feeling weak for months. At first, I blamed my age. I told myself that older men got tired. I took afternoon naps. I stopped walking to the grocery store. I even laughed when Emily said I looked pale. "I am not pale," I told her. "This is what handsome looks like after 60. She rolled her eyes and laughed. "Dad, handsome people still need doctors." I did not listen. Then one morning, I woke up with a sharp pain in my stomach. It felt as if someone had pushed a hot knife into my side. I tried to stand, but my knees gave way. I fell beside my bed. For several minutes, I lay on the floor staring at the ceiling. My phone was on the nightstand, only a few feet away, but it might as well have been across the ocean. I stretched my arm until my fingers touched the charging cable. I pulled the phone down and called Emily. She answered before the second ring. "Dad." I tried to speak calmly. "I think I need a little help." She heard the pain in my voice. "I am coming right now." Emily arrived 12 minutes later. She was still wearing her pink sleep shirt under her coat. Her hair was messy, and she had put on two different shoes. Even while hurting, I noticed. "You are wearing one black shoe and one brown shoe," I whispered. She looked down. "Great, now I look like a confused penguin." I laughed, then groaned because laughing hurt. She helped me into her car and drove me to the hospital. After several tests, a doctor named Dr. Harris entered the room. He was a calm man with silver glasses and a soft voice. He sat beside my bed instead of standing over me. That was when I knew the news was serious. "Mr. Miller," he said, "we found a growth in your colon." I stared at him. "A growth?" He nodded slowly. "The tests show that it is cancer." The room became silent. I heard a machine beeping beside me. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Somewhere a child was crying. But inside my head there was nothing. Cancer. It was a word that seemed too large to fit inside that small hospital room. Emily grabbed my hand. "What happens now?" she asked. Dr. Harris explained that the cancer had been found early enough for surgery. He said the operation gave me a strong chance of recovery, but it needed to happen soon. Then came the problem. My insurance would cover most of the cost, but not all of it. I needed to pay $4,300 before the hospital could schedule the surgery. I had some savings, but not enough. 2 years earlier, I had spent most of my retirement money caring for my wife, Margaret, before she died from heart disease. I would have spent every dollar again just to have one more day with her. After she died, I lived carefully. I bought cheap groceries. I repaired old clothes. I kept the heat low during winter. Still, I had only $900 in my account. Emily spoke first. I will help. No, I said quickly. Dad, this is not the time to be stubborn. You have rent, you have Noah, you have your own bills. She squeezed my hand. And you are my father. I looked away because tears had filled my eyes. Daniel was my next hope. His company had become very successful. Only a week earlier, he had told me about a huge business deal. We just closed a $14 million contract. Dad, he had said proudly over the phone. This is going to change everything. I had congratulated him. I had told him his mother would have been proud. So when I left the hospital that afternoon, I called him. He did not answer. I called again 2 hours later. Still nothing. That evening, he finally returned my call. Hey, Dad, I only have a minute. We are celebrating the new contract. Music played loudly behind him. People were cheering. Daniel, I said, I need to tell you something important. Can it wait until tomorrow? No, I have cancer. The music continued, but Daniel became quiet. What did you say? I told him everything. I explained the surgery. I explained the cost. I explained that I needed $4,300 quickly. For a few seconds, he said nothing. Then he sighed. Dad, I am sorry, I really am, but I cannot help right now. I thought I had misunderstood him. You just told me your company closed a $14 million deal. That money belongs to the company. It is not sitting in my pocket. I understand that, I said, but I am not asking for millions. I am asking for $4,300. I will repay you. He lowered his voice. There is no money for you, Dad. The word struck harder than the cancer diagnosis. No money for me. That is not what I meant. It sounded exactly like what you meant. Dad, please do not make this emotional. I almost laughed. My son had just told his father there was no money for cancer surgery, and he did not want me to become emotional. I heard someone call his name in the background. He covered the phone, but I could still hear him say, I am coming. Then he returned. I have to go, we will talk later. The call ended. I sat alone in my living room, holding the phone. A photograph of Margaret rested on the shelf across from me. She was smiling in the picture, wearing the yellow dress she loved. I looked at her face. Where did we go wrong? I whispered. For the first time in years, I cried like a child. The next morning, someone knocked on my door. It was Emily. Her eyes were swollen, as if she had not slept. She entered without waiting for permission and placed an envelope on my table. What is this? I asked. Open it. Inside were $3,100 bills. I stared at the money. Emily, where did you get this? $3,000, she said. It is not the full amount, but it is everything I could gather. I pushed the envelope back toward her. No. Dad, you cannot afford this. She took a slow breath. I sold Mom's bracelet. My heart stopped. Margaret had given Emily a gold bracelet before she died. It was one of the few valuable things she had left behind. You sold your mother's bracelet. Emily nodded, and tears filled her eyes. I also used the money I had saved for a better car. I stood so quickly that the room spun. You should not have done that. Yes, I should have. That bracelet belonged to you. You belong to me too, Dad. You are my family. I covered my face. Emily wrapped her arms around me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her son, Noah, stepped into the room. I had not noticed him standing near the doorway. He carried a small glass jar filled with coins and folded dollar bills. Grandpa, he said, I have money too. I knelt in front of him. "What is that?" "My game money. I was saving for a new game system." He placed the jar in my hands. "You can have it." I hugged him tightly. That was the moment something changed inside me. Daniel had millions moving through his business, yet he had turned away. Emily had almost nothing, yet she gave me her savings, her car money, and her mother's bracelet. Even little Noah was willing to give up the thing he wanted most. That evening, after Emily and Noah left, I sat at my desk and opened an old metal box. Inside were papers Margaret had kept for years. Bank records, property papers, business documents, and one sealed envelope with Daniel's name written across the front. I had forgotten about it. Before Margaret died, she had asked me to open that envelope only if our family ever faced a serious crisis. My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a letter and a copy of an agreement connected to Daniel's company. I read the first page. Then I read it again. Daniel had not built his company alone. Years earlier, Margaret had secretly used money from her family inheritance to save Daniel's business from failure. In return, she had received ownership of 25% of the company. After her death, that ownership had passed to me. Daniel had never mentioned it. Worse, the papers showed that he could not approve a major contract without informing me because I was still a legal owner. The $14 million deal might have been signed illegally. I called Margaret's former lawyer, Mr. Collins. He asked me to bring the documents to his office immediately. Before I left, I looked directly at the photograph on the shelf. Margaret had protected our son when he was struggling. Now our son had refused to help save my life. Before we continue, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Would you forgive Daniel, or would you make him face the truth? Like the video and subscribe so you do not miss what happened when Daniel discovered that the father he had rejected still owned part of his company. At Mr. Collins's office, I handed him the papers. He studied them for nearly an hour. Finally, he removed his glasses and looked at me. "Robert, Daniel has a serious problem." "What kind of problem?" Mr. Collins turned the company agreement toward me. "If this contract was signed without your approval, it may be frozen. His investors could pull out. His company could lose everything." I swallowed hard. I do not want to destroy my son. "Then you need to understand something else." He opened another folder. "Your son has been sending company money into a private account for almost 2 years." I stared at the numbers on the page. "How do you know?" "Because Margaret asked me to watch the company after she became suspicious. I continued checking the public records after she died." "Why would Daniel do that?" "I do not know yet," Mr. Collins said, "but someone else has been helping him." He pointed to a name listed beside several money transfers. The name belonged to someone I trusted. Someone who had sat at my table. Someone who had cried at Margaret's funeral. My hands became cold. Before I could speak, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I answered slowly. "Dad," he said, his voice shaking, "do not sign anything. Do not speak to any lawyer. I know what Mom left you." I looked at Mr. Collins. "How do you know where I am?" Daniel did not answer. Then I heard a second voice beside him. A voice I recognized immediately. That was when I understood that Daniel had not betrayed me alone. The second voice on the phone belonged to Laura, Daniel's wife. I had trusted Laura for nearly 15 years. She had eaten Christmas dinner in my home. She had sat beside Margaret during hospital visits. She had hugged me at my wife's funeral and promised that I would never be alone. Now she was standing beside my son, while he warned me not to speak to a lawyer. "Daniel," I said slowly, "why is Laura with you?" There was a short silence. Then Laura spoke. "Robert, please listen to us before you do something you will regret." My grip tightened around the phone. "I am sitting in a lawyer's office because my son refused to help me pay for cancer surgery. I have already done something I regret." I called him. "Dad," Daniel said, "I told you the company money is complicated. You said there was no money for me. That is not what I meant." "It is exactly what you said." Mr. Collins raised one hand and quietly told me not to reveal too much. He wanted Daniel to keep talking. I took a deep breath. "Tell me why you are afraid of these papers." Daniel did not answer at once. Laura spoke again. "The contract is very important. A lot of people could lose their jobs if anything happens to it." I looked at the company documents on the desk. "What about my life?" I asked. "Does that matter to anyone?" "Of course it matters," she said. "Then why did neither of you call me after I told Daniel I had cancer?" Another silence followed. That silence hurt more than any answer could have. Finally, Daniel said, "Dad, please come to my office. We can explain everything there." "No." "Why not?" "Because I do not trust you right now." His voice changed. It became colder. "You are making a mistake." I almost laughed. "No, Daniel. I made my mistake years ago when I believed success had made you a better man." I ended the call. For several seconds, the room stayed quiet. Mr. Collins watched me carefully. "Are you all right?" "No," I said, "but I am finally paying attention." He nodded. "That is a good place to begin." Mr. Collins explained the papers in simple words. Many years earlier, Daniel's construction company had almost failed. He owed money to workers, suppliers, and the bank. He had been too ashamed to tell me. Margaret learned about the problem through Laura. She secretly used $600,000 from an inheritance she had received from her father. That money saved Daniel's company. In return, Margaret became the owner of 25% of the business. The agreement gave her important rights. Daniel could run the company, hire workers, and sign normal deals. But for any contract worth more than $10 million, he needed approval from all major owners. After Margaret died, her ownership passed to me. The $14 million contract should have required my signature. But I had never seen it. Mr. Collins believed Daniel had hidden my ownership from the new investors. If that was true, he had lied during the deal. "Could he go to prison?" I asked. "Possibly," Mr. Collins said. "But first we need proof of exactly what he signed and what he told the investors." I looked down at the money transfer records. "And these private accounts?" He tapped the page. Daniel moved almost $900,000 from the company over 2 years. My chest tightened. 900,000. Yes. Where did it go? Some of it went into a private company owned by Laura. I stared at him. Laura owns a company. A small business on paper. It has no real office, no workers, and no clear service. That makes it look like the company may have been created only to receive money. I leaned back in my chair. The room seemed to tilt. Daniel and Laura had always looked perfect together. They posted pictures from vacations. They hosted expensive parties. Laura wore beautiful dresses and spoke about charity events. Daniel talked about hard work and family values. But now I wondered how much of their life was real. "Why did Margaret suspect them?" I asked. Mr. Collins opened another envelope. "Because Laura asked her for more money." "When?" "About 6 months before Margaret died." I remembered that time clearly. Margaret had been weak. She could not walk far without help. She spent many afternoons in bed, but her mind was still sharp. Mr. Collins handed me a copy of a letter. Laura had written to Margaret, asking for $250,000. She claimed Daniel's company had a tax problem and needed help quickly. Margaret did not give her the money. Instead, she asked Mr. Collins to check the company records. That was when he found the first strange transfer. "Why did she not tell me?" I asked. "She wanted proof first. She was also afraid the stress would hurt you. You were taking care of her every day." I felt tears gather in my eyes. Even while dying, Margaret had been trying to protect me. Mr. Collins placed the letter back into the folder. "Robert, I need you to understand this clearly. Your wife did not fully know what Daniel and Laura were doing. She only knew money was disappearing. She was still investigating when she became too sick." I looked out the window. Cars moved along the street below. People carried bags, drank coffee, and hurried through their normal lives. My life no longer felt normal. I had cancer. My son had rejected me. My daughter had sold her mother's bracelet to help me. And now I had learned that Daniel and Laura might have stolen money from a company I partly owned. "What should I do?" I asked. Mr. Collins folded his hands. "First, we protect your health." He called the hospital and spoke to the billing department. He explained that I owned part of a company and that legal funds were being arranged. The hospital agreed to schedule the surgery if I paid $3,000 immediately and signed a plan for the remaining $1,300. Emily's money was enough. I hated using the money from Margaret's bracelet, but there was no time to wait. The surgery was set for the following Tuesday. Then Mr. Collins sent a formal notice to Daniel's company. The notice stated that I was a legal owner. It demanded a copy of the $14 million contract. It also warned that no major company money could be moved until the ownership issue was settled. The notice did not cancel the contract. Not yet. But it placed the deal in danger. By evening, my phone had 27 missed calls. Most were from Daniel. 5 were from Laura. 3 came from numbers I did not know. I ignored them all. When I arrived home, Emily was waiting on my porch with Noah. "Dad, where have you been?" she asked. I showed her the hospital papers. "The surgery is scheduled." She hugged me so tightly that I could hardly breathe. "Careful," I said. "I still need my ribs." She laughed through her tears. Noah held up a paper bag. "We brought dinner." "What is it?" "Tacos. My favorite." "I thought your favorite was pizza." At my age, I'm allowed to have many favorites. We went inside. For one peaceful hour. We ate at the kitchen table. Noah told me about a boy at school who had tried to hide a frog in his backpack. Emily complained that her old car now made a strange sound even when she was not turning left. I laughed more than I expected. That simple dinner reminded me of what family was supposed to feel like. Safe, warm, honest. After Noah went into the living room to watch television, I told Emily everything. I told her about Margaret's ownership. I told her about the missing money. I told her Laura had been involved. Emily's face became pale. "Are you sure? Mr. Collins has records." She stood and walked toward the window. "I knew Daniel had changed," she said, "but I never thought he would steal." "You knew he had changed." She turned around slowly. "Dad, there is something I did not tell you." My heart sank. "What?" "About 8 months ago, Daniel asked me to sign a paper." "What kind of paper?" "He said it was for Mom's estate. He said it would make the family property easier to manage." "Did you sign it?" "No, the paper had legal words I did not understand, so I told him I wanted a lawyer to read it." "What did he do?" "He became angry. He said I did not trust him." I stared at her. "Did you keep the paper?" She nodded. It is in my apartment. We drove there immediately. The paper was hidden inside a folder beneath Emily's bed. I called Mr. Collins and read the title to him. He told us not to touch anything else and said he would come over. When he arrived, he examined the document. His expression became serious. This is not about managing family property, he said. Then what is it? It is a transfer agreement. If Emily had signed this, she would have given up any claim she might have to Margaret's business ownership. Emily sat down. Why would Daniel need my claim if Dad inherited the shares? Mr. Collins pointed to a section near the bottom. Because if Robert died before the ownership was fully recorded, part of his interest could pass to both of you. The room became silent. I felt a cold fear move through me. Daniel had known the ownership could become a problem. He had tried to make Emily give up her rights. That meant this was not a sudden mistake. He had been planning for months. Emily covered her mouth. Dad, your cancer diagnosis came only 3 weeks after he asked me to sign this. I looked at her sharply. What are you saying? I do not know, maybe nothing, but the timing scares me. Mr. Collins spoke calmly. We have no proof that Daniel knew Robert was sick. We should not make that claim without evidence. He was right. But fear had already entered the room. That night, Emily refused to let me stay alone. She and Noah slept in the guest room. I lay awake, listening to the old clock in the hallway. At 2 in the morning, I heard a car outside. Headlights moved across my bedroom wall. I sat up. A car door closed. Then someone walked toward the house. I reached for my phone. Before I could call Emily, there was a soft knock at the back door. Not the front door. The back door. Only family members used that entrance. I moved quietly through the hallway and turned on the kitchen light. A woman stood outside. It was Laura. Her hair was wet from the rain. Her face was pale. She kept looking over her shoulder. I did not open the door. Why are you here? She pressed both hands against the glass. Robert, please let me in. No. Daniel does not know I came. That did not make me feel better. Then Laura lifted a small black notebook for me to see. I recognized it. It had belonged to Margaret. Where did you get that? I asked. Laura began to cry. Margaret gave it to me before she died. Why? Because she knew what Daniel was doing. My hand froze on the lock. Laura looked behind her again. Then she whispered the words that changed everything. Daniel did not refuse your surgery money because he did not have it. He refused because he was afraid that saving your life would give you enough time to discover what he had done. Before I could answer, another car turned onto my street. Laura looked at the headlights and stepped back in terror. He followed me, she whispered. Then someone began pounding on my front door. The pounding on my front door shook the picture frames in the hallway. Dad, Emily called from the guest room. What is happening? Stay with Noah, I shouted. Laura stood outside the back door, frozen with fear. Rain ran down her face, and she held Margaret's black notebook against her chest. The pounding came again. Dad, open the door, Daniel shouted. I know Laura is in there. My heart began beating faster. Only a few hours earlier, I had learned that my son might have stolen almost $900,000 from his company. Now his wife was at my back door, claiming that he had refused to help with my cancer surgery because he wanted me to die before I discovered the truth. I looked at Laura through the glass. Is Daniel dangerous? I asked. She did not answer quickly enough. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I unlocked the back door and pulled her inside. Emily entered the kitchen wearing her night clothes. Noah stood behind her, holding a pillow. Go back into the room, I told him gently. But Grandpa, he said, someone is shouting. Emily knelt in front of him. Take my phone and stay in the bedroom. Lock the door. Call me if anyone tries to enter. Noah looked frightened, but he nodded. As soon as he left, Daniel pounded on the front door again. Laura grabbed my arm. Do not let him inside. Why? Because he thinks I stole something from him. Did you? She looked down at the notebook. Yes. Daniel shouted again. Laura, I know you can hear me. Bring back the notebook. I moved toward the front window and looked through the curtain. Daniel stood on the porch in a dark coat. His hair was wet. His hands were empty, but his face was filled with anger. Another man waited beside his car. I recognized him. His name was Mark Benson. Mark had been Daniel's business partner for more than 10 years. He was tall, quiet, and always dressed as if he were going to an important meeting. He had attended Margaret's funeral. He had even carried her coffin. Why is Mark here? I whispered. Laura looked through the window. Because Mark is part of it. Part of what? The missing money. I took out my phone and called the police. Daniel heard me speaking through the door. Dad, do not do that. I only want to talk. You could have talked to me when I asked for help. This is not about the surgery. That is exactly why I am calling the police. His voice became softer. Dad, please, you do not understand what Laura has done. Then explain it. Not through a locked door. I stayed where I was. Laura moved away from the window. Robert, she whispered, Daniel is not going to tell you the truth. Then you will. She looked at Emily. I need to speak to him alone. No, Emily said. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of me. Laura wiped her face with her sleeve. For years, I thought Daniel was only moving money to protect the company. He told me the business needed hidden emergency funds because banks could not be trusted. Emily stared at her. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. That was not an answer. Laura closed her eyes. At first, yes. Later, I knew he was lying. She opened Margaret's notebook and placed it on the kitchen table. Inside were pages of dates, names, account numbers, and short notes written in my wife's careful handwriting. Margaret had recorded every suspicious payment she found. Several entries included Daniel's name. Others included Mark Benson. One entry included Laura. I pointed to it. What did you do? Laura's lips trembled. Daniel created a company in my name. He said it was for design services. Money from his construction company was sent into that account. How much? Almost $400,000 over 2 years. Emily stepped closer. Where is the money now? Some paid for our house. Some paid debts. Some went to Mark. Some was used to make it look as if Daniel's company had more expenses than it really had. I did not understand. Explain that clearly. Laura took a breath. Daniel wanted to pay less tax. He also wanted to keep money hidden from investors. Mark helped him create false bills. My company received payments for work it never did. Then the money was moved into private accounts. The truth was simple and ugly. Daniel had stolen from his own company. Laura had helped him. Mark had created false records to hide it. And Margaret had discovered enough to become a threat. I looked down at her handwriting. Did Margaret confront you? Laura nodded. About 6 months before she died. Tell me what happened. Laura sat at the kitchen table. Margaret asked me to visit her one afternoon while you were buying groceries. She showed me the notebook. She said she knew Daniel was moving money. My wife had been weak then. Some days she could barely sit up. Yet she had still been brave enough to challenge them. What did you tell her? I asked. At first, I denied everything. Then she showed me copies of the bank records. I became afraid and admitted that Daniel had created the company in my name. Did she tell Daniel? No, she said she wanted me to help her gather proof. Did you agree? Laura began to cry again. Yes, but I lied to her. Emily folded her arms. What do you mean? I told Margaret I would help. Then I went home and told Daniel everything. My stomach tightened. You betrayed her. I was scared. That does not change what you did. No, Laura whispered, it does not. Outside, Daniel knocked again, but not as loudly. Police are coming, I told him. Mark left first. I watched through the window as he climbed into the car and drove away. Daniel remained on the porch. Dad, he called, Laura is trying to save herself. She will blame everything on me. Laura gave a sad laugh. He is right about one thing. I'm trying to save myself. At least you are honest about that, Emily said. Laura reached into her coat and removed a small flash drive. The notebook is not the only evidence. What is on that? I asked. Copies of emails, payment records, and voice recordings. Voice recordings of whom? Daniel and Mark. The room became quiet. Laura explained that after Margaret confronted her, Daniel became more secretive. He changed passwords and began meeting Mark away from the office. Laura started to fear that Daniel would blame her if the truth came out. So she recorded several conversations. One recording was made 2 weeks before my cancer diagnosis. What did they discuss? I asked. Lara looked toward the front door. Your ownership in the company. My throat became dry. Did Daniel know I own part of the company? Yes, he has known since Margaret died. Then why did he never tell me? Because he was waiting for you to sign some papers. I never signed anything. You signed several documents after Margaret's funeral. I remembered those days only in pieces. I had barely slept. I could not eat. Daniel had placed papers in front of me and said they were needed to close Margaret's accounts and pay final bills. I had signed where he pointed. Did I give him my ownership? I asked. No, Mr. Collins had protected the shares in a separate agreement. Daniel did not realize that until later. That explained why he tried to make Emily sign away her future claim. He had failed to take my ownership, so he tried to remove hers. Why did he sign the $14 million contract without me? Emily asked. Laura answered. Because Mark told him the investors would cancel the deal if they learned Robert owned 25%. Why would that matter? Robert could demand an audit. An audit would reveal the missing money. Everything was now connected. The secret company, the false bills, the stolen money, the hidden ownership, the illegal contract. Daniel did not refuse my surgery money because he could not afford $4,300. He refused because my illness seemed useful to him. The thought made me feel sick. Did he really want me to die? I asked. Laura did not answer. I repeated the question. Did my son want me to die? She slowly opened the notebook to the final page. Margaret had written one sentence there. Daniel asked whether Robert's ownership would return to the company if Robert died. The date was 8 months earlier, before I knew I had cancer. I read the sentence 3 times. Then Laura played one of the recordings from the flash drive on her phone. Mark's voice came first. You need both Robert and Emily out of the ownership line before the investors examine the company. Then Daniel spoke. Emily will never sign now. She is too suspicious. What about your father? There was a pause. Daniel answered. Dad trusts me. If his health gets worse, I can get him to sign whatever we need. My knees felt weak. The recording continued. Mark asked what would happen if I refused. Daniel replied in a low voice. Then we wait. He is old, Mark. We will not have to wait forever. Emily covered her mouth. Laura stopped the recording. For several seconds, none of us spoke. My own son had discussed my death, as if he were waiting for bad weather to pass. Then we heard police sirens approaching. Daniel stepped away from the door. By the time the officers arrived, he was standing beside his car with his hands visible. The police questioned everyone separately. Daniel claimed he had only come to bring Laura home. Laura told them she was afraid of him. Because he had not threatened her directly that night, the officers could not arrest him for coming to the house, but they warned him to leave and not return. Before getting into his car, Daniel looked at me. "Dad, you are making the biggest mistake of your life." "No," I said, "I am finally correcting one." His face changed. For 1 second, he did not look angry. He looked afraid. Then he drove away. The officers took a copy of Laura's recordings and told us detectives would contact us. After they left, I called Mr. Collins. He arrived shortly before sunrise. We listened to the recordings together. He confirmed that they could become strong evidence, but he warned us that Laura was also involved in the crime. "You may be arrested," he told her. "I know. Why come forward now?" Laura looked at me. "Because Daniel said something after Robert called about the surgery." "What did he say?" Emily asked. Laura's voice became quiet. "He said refusing the money would solve 2 problems. Robert might die, and everyone would believe he died because he could not afford treatment." Anger moved through me like fire. My son had not only abandoned me, he had counted on my death. Mr. Collins called a detective he trusted and arranged a formal meeting for that morning. Before we left, Laura asked to speak to me alone. Emily did not want to leave us, but I told her it was all right. Laura stood beside Margaret's photograph. "There is one more thing," she said. "What?" "Margaret did not die only from heart disease." I stared at her. "What are you saying?" Laura reached into the notebook and removed a folded hospital paper. She was given the wrong medicine twice during her final month. I felt the room grow cold. "Mistakes happen in hospitals," I said. "Not this time." "How do you know?" "Because the medicine did not come from the hospital." I could barely breathe. Laura looked directly into my eyes. "Daniel brought it to the house." Before I could ask another question, Emily screamed from the hallway. "Dad, come quickly." I ran toward her. The back door was open. Noah was gone. On the kitchen floor lay his phone and a note written in Daniel's handwriting. It said that if I wanted my grandson back safely, I had to bring Margaret's notebook to the old company warehouse alone. The note shook in my hand. "If you want Noah back safely, bring Margaret's notebook to the old company warehouse alone." Emily read it once, then grabbed my arm. "Dad, call the police." I already was. My fingers were trembling so badly that I pressed the wrong number first. Mr. Collins took the phone from me and called the detective who had been waiting to interview Laura. Emily ran outside in her night clothes. "Noah," she screamed, "Noah." The street was empty. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet. Noah's small footprints led from the back door to the driveway. Beside them were larger shoe marks. There were fresh tire tracks near the curb. Emily dropped to her knees. "He took my son." I knelt beside her. "We will get him back." "How can you promise that?" "Because Daniel wants the notebook. As long as he believes we have it, Noah is valuable to him." The words sounded terrible, but I needed Emily to remain calm. Inside the house, Laura stared at the note. Daniel would never hurt Noah, she said. Emily turned on her. You also believed he would never steal from his company. Laura lowered her eyes. Mr. Collins asked her about the old warehouse. She explained that it belonged to Daniel's company. It had once been used to store tools and building materials, but it had been mostly empty for 2 years. Where is it? I asked. Near the river, Laura said, about 20 minutes from here. The detective called back. His name was Detective Harris. He told us not to go anywhere. Police officers were already checking nearby roads. He also asked if Noah had a phone or any device that could be tracked. His phone is on the kitchen floor, Emily said. What about a watch or tablet? Emily suddenly looked up. His backpack. What about it? Noah has a small tracker inside his school backpack. I put it there last year after another child took the wrong bag during a school trip. She opened an app on her phone. A small blue dot appeared on the screen. It was moving south, toward the river. Detective Harris told us to send him the location. Then he gave a clear warning. Do not contact Daniel. Do not go to the warehouse. Let us handle this. I understood his reason, but every part of me wanted to run outside and drive there. Noah was only 10. He had given me his game money because he wanted to save my life. Now he was trapped in the middle of a crime he did not understand. Mr. Collins placed the real notebook inside his briefcase. We should make a copy, he said. Laura shook her head. Daniel knows every mark on that notebook. A copy will not fool him. We do not need to fool him for long, Mr. Collins replied. He used a printer in my study to copy every page. Then he placed the copied pages inside a similar black notebook from my desk. The real notebook stayed with him. Detective Harris called again 10 minutes later. The tracker had stopped moving at the warehouse. Police officers were surrounding the area, but they could not see Noah. They also did not know how many people were inside. Daniel called my phone before the detective finished speaking. Mr. Collins told me to answer and put the call on speaker. Dad, Daniel said. His voice was calm. Where is Noah? He is safe. Let me speak to him. Bring the notebook. Let me speak to him first. There was a short silence. Then I heard Noah crying. Grandpa. I closed my eyes. Noah, are you hurt? No. Are you alone? Someone grabbed the phone before he could answer. You heard him, Daniel said. He is fine. You took a child from his home. I did not take him. Then who did? Bring the notebook to the warehouse, and you will have your answer. I remembered the second man outside my house. Mark Benson. Is Mark with you? Daniel became quiet. That was enough. I looked at Laura. Her face had turned pale. You have 30 minutes, Daniel said. Come alone. If I see police, you may never see Noah again. The call ended. Detective Harris had listened through Mr. Collins's phone. He told me the police would create a plan. I would go to the warehouse with the false notebook. I would wear a small recording device under my shirt. Officers would remain hidden nearby. They would move in as soon as they saw Noah or believed he was in danger. Emily refused. You are sick, Dad. You cannot go in there alone. I have to. No. Daniel asked for me. He could kill you. I looked at her. Then we make sure he does not get the chance. She began to cry. I held her face between my hands. Listen to me. Noah needs us to think clearly. The police will be close. Mr. Collins has the real evidence. Even if something happens to me, Daniel cannot erase the truth. Do not say that. I am not planning to die. I tried to smile. I have a surgery next week, remember. She gave a broken laugh and hugged me. Before leaving, I looked at Margaret's photograph. For years, I had believed silence kept families together. When Daniel made small mistakes, I forgave him without asking questions. When he stopped visiting, I made excuses for him. When he spoke badly to Emily, I told her to be patient. I thought peace meant avoiding conflict. Now I understood that silence had allowed dishonesty to grow. A small lie had become stolen money. Stolen money had become threats. And now a frightened child was being held inside an empty warehouse. Detective Harris drove me near the location in an unmarked car. He checked the recording device beneath my shirt and gave me simple instructions. Keep Daniel talking. Do not argue if he points a weapon at you. Do not try to rescue Noah by yourself. Use the words "Margaret was right" if you need us to enter immediately. I nodded. The warehouse stood beside the river, behind a broken metal fence. Several windows were covered with wooden boards. One light shone near the back. I carried the false notebook in a paper bag. My legs felt weak as I approached the entrance. Part of it was fear. Part of it was cancer. But I kept walking. The metal door opened before I knocked. Mark stood inside. He looked tired and angry. Give me the bag. I held it close. I want Noah. You are not in charge here. Neither are you. His eyes narrowed. He searched me quickly, but he did not find the recorder. Then he led me into the main storage area. Old wooden boards were stacked against one wall. Rusty tools lay on shelves. A single chair stood beneath a hanging light. Daniel waited beside it. Noah sat on the chair with his hands tied in front of him. He was frightened but did not appear hurt. Grandpa. I moved toward him. Mark blocked my path. Let him go, I said. Notebook first. I looked at Daniel. How could you do this to your own nephew? Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. This was not my plan. Mark laughed. Do not pretend to be innocent now. Daniel glared at him. You said we would only bring Noah here until Dad arrived. You agreed. Because you said it was the only way to get the notebook. Noah began to cry again. I kept my voice calm. Daniel, untie him. Give us the notebook. Then we will all leave. That is not going to happen, Mark said. Daniel turned toward him. What does that mean? Mark stepped closer. It means Robert knows too much. Laura knows too much. You have lost control of everything. I studied Daniel's face. For the first time, he looked as confused as I felt. This was not only Daniel's plan. Mark had pushed the situation further. I placed the paper bag on a wooden table. Before I hand it over, I want the truth. Mark smiled. You are not in a position to demand anything. Maybe not, but if I do not leave this building, copies of every record will go to the police, the investors, and the tax office. That was not completely true. Mr. Collins had the evidence, but we had not arranged automatic messages. Mark did not know that. His smile disappeared. Daniel looked at me. You gave the records to Collins. Of course I did. Dad, you do not understand. If the investors see those records, hundreds of workers could lose their jobs. You should have thought of them before stealing company money. I was going to replace it. With what? The new contract. Daniel looked away. The truth became clear. Daniel and Mark had planned to use money from the $14 million deal to replace what they had stolen. That was why the contract mattered so much. It was not only about becoming richer. It was their way of hiding the old crime. They planned to move money through false expenses, cover the missing amount, and make the records appear normal before anyone could inspect them. I said it aloud so the recording device could capture everything. You signed the new contract because you plan to use its money to replace the $900,000 you stole. Daniel did not answer. Mark did. We borrowed that money. You created false bills. It was temporary. You sent money into Laura's company. Daniel stepped forward. Mark stopped talking. Why? Mark asked. Your father already knows. I looked at Daniel. And my surgery, did you truly refuse because you wanted me to die? His face changed. Dad, answer me. I did not want you to die. Laura heard what you said. I was angry. I was afraid. Mark told me that if you recovered, Mr. Collins might explain the ownership agreement to you. So you left me without treatment. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I thought Emily would find the money. The answer was so selfish that I almost could not believe it. You expected your sister, who struggles to pay rent, to save me while you protected your stolen money. I was trapped. No, I said, Noah is trapped. You made choices. Mark grabbed the paper bag. He opened the false notebook and quickly turned the pages. His expression changed. This is a copy. Daniel stared at me. Where is the real one? Safe. Mark rushed toward me and grabbed my shirt. Tell me where it is. I could feel the recording device pressing against my chest. His hand touched the small wire. His eyes widened. He pulled the device free. You are recording us. Daniel stepped back. Mark let him go. Mark threw the recorder onto the floor and crushed it beneath his shoe. Then he reached inside his coat and pulled out a gun. Noah screamed. Daniel raised both hands. What are you doing? Fixing your mistakes, Mark said. He pointed the gun at me. I looked toward the boarded windows, hoping the police had heard enough before the recorder was destroyed. Mark ordered Daniel to tie my hands. Daniel did not move. Do it, Mark shouted. No. Mark pointed the gun toward Noah. Do it or the boy gets hurt. Daniel's face went white. He picked up a rope and walked toward me. I could see tears in his eyes. Dad, he whispered, I am sorry. It was the first honest thing he had said. As he moved behind me, I noticed his right hand reaching slowly toward a heavy metal tool on the table. Mark did not see it, but Noah did. The boy stopped crying. Daniel tightened the rope loosely around my wrists, then looked directly at me. I knew what he was planning. I also knew it could get us all killed. Mark told him to step away. Daniel took one step back. Then another. His fingers closed around the metal tool. I looked at Noah. He was watching the gun. Mark turned toward the paper bag for 1 second. Daniel raised the tool. At the same moment, Noah kicked the chair backward into Mark's legs. The gun fired. The sound filled the warehouse. Someone fell to the floor. Then police officers crashed through the door. The gunshot was so loud that my ears rang. For 1 terrible second, I could not see who had fallen. Then I saw Noah lying beside the chair. Emily's little boy was not moving. Noah, I shouted. I pulled against the rope around my wrists, but Daniel had tied it too tightly for me to escape. Police officers rushed into the warehouse from 3 directions. Drop the gun, one officer shouted. Mark stood near the table with the gun still in his hand. Daniel was on the floor beside him, holding his shoulder. Blood was spreading across Daniel's shirt. The bullet had hit my son. Mark turned toward the officers. Before he could raise the gun again, Detective Harris struck his arm and knocked the weapon away. 2 other officers forced Mark to the floor and placed handcuffs around his wrists. I did not care about Mark. I cared about Noah. He had fallen backward when he kicked the chair into Mark's legs. His eyes were closed. An officer untied my hands, and I hurried to him. "Noah, please look at me." His eyes opened slowly. "Grandpa." I almost collapsed with relief. "Are you hurt?" "My head hurts." A paramedic examined him. Noah had hit his head on the concrete floor, but there was no serious injury. He had a small cut near his hairline and a large bruise on his back. He looked at Daniel. "Uncle Daniel got shot." The paramedics were already treating my son. The bullet had passed through the upper part of his shoulder. It had not touched his heart or any major blood vessel. Daniel would survive. Mark was taken away in a police car. Daniel and Noah were taken to the hospital in separate ambulances. I rode with Noah. During the drive, he held my hand. "Grandpa," he whispered, "was I brave?" I squeezed his fingers. "You were very brave, but you should never have been placed in that danger." He looked worried. "Is Uncle Daniel bad?" I did not know how to answer at first. Daniel had done terrible things, but he had also tried to stop Mark from shooting us. Finally, I said, "Your uncle made very bad choices. One good choice does not erase them, but it may show that some good is still inside him." Noah nodded as if he understood. At the hospital, Emily ran toward us. She hugged Noah and cried so loudly that several nurses turned to look. Then she hugged me. "I thought I had lost both of you." "We are here," I told her. "We are both here." Noah stayed overnight for observation. Daniel was taken into surgery to repair the damage to his shoulder. Police officers guarded his room. Laura came to the hospital after giving a full statement to the detectives. When she saw Noah, she covered her face and began crying. Emily did not comfort her. "You helped create this," she said. "I know. You knew Daniel was stealing." "Yes." "You knew Mark was dangerous." "Not until tonight. But you stayed silent for years." Laura lowered her head. "I was afraid of losing my home, my marriage, and the life people thought we had." Emily's voice became cold. "Because of your silence, my son was taken from his bed." Laura nodded. There was no excuse she could give. By morning, the police had enough evidence to arrest Daniel when he recovered. The recordings proved that he and Mark had created false bills and moved company money into private accounts. The bank records showed where the money went. The ownership papers proved that Daniel had hidden my 25% share from the investors. The false transfer agreement showed that he had tried to remove Emily from the ownership line. The $14 million contract had been signed without my legal approval. Everything had finally come into the light. But one question still frightened me. What had happened to Margaret? I gave the hospital paper from her notebook to Detective Harris. He ordered a new investigation into her final weeks. The detectives questioned Daniel, Laura, Margaret's doctors, and the nurse who had cared for her at home. The truth came out 3 weeks later. Daniel had brought medicine to our house, but he had not created it or changed it. Mark had given the bottles to him. Mark told Daniel that they were special heart medicines from a private doctor. He claimed they would make Margaret stronger. Daniel believed him because Mark said a healthier Margaret would be easier to convince to sign new business papers. But the bottles contained the wrong amount of medicine. The dose was too strong. It made Margaret weaker and caused 2 dangerous attacks. Did Mark mean to kill her? The detectives could not prove that he planned to kill her directly. But they proved that he knew the medicine was not prescribed for her, and that he wanted her too weak to continue investigating the company. Daniel admitted that he brought the medicine into our home without asking Margaret's real doctor. He did it because Mark promised that the new papers would give Daniel full control of the company. His greed had placed his own mother's life in danger. The doctors said Margaret's heart disease was still the main cause of her death. However, the wrong medicine had likely made her condition worse and may have shortened her life. That truth broke something inside me. Daniel had not planned to murder his mother, but his selfish actions had harmed her. He had trusted money and power more than his parents. That choice had consequences. Mark was charged with kidnapping, threatening a child, firing a weapon, fraud, theft, and giving dangerous medicine without medical approval. He was later sentenced to many years in prison. Daniel pleaded guilty to fraud, theft, hiding company ownership, and helping Mark cover the illegal payments. He also admitted his role in taking Noah to the warehouse. He received a prison sentence, although the judge reduced it slightly because Daniel had tried to protect Noah and me when Mark pulled the gun. Laura pleaded guilty to helping move stolen money through the false company in her name. She avoided prison because she gave the police the recordings, returned the money she still had, and helped prove Mark's crimes. She lost her house, her expensive car, and almost everything that had been bought with stolen money. She also lost her marriage. Daniel and Laura divorced before his trial ended. The $14 million contract was not completely destroyed. Mr. Collins worked with the investors and the honest managers in Daniel's company. The investors agreed to continue the project under new leadership because hundreds of innocent workers depended on those jobs. Daniel and Mark were removed from the business. A professional manager took control. A full audit was completed. The stolen money was recovered from accounts, property, and other assets. As a legal owner, I had the power to demand changes. I did not use that power to become rich. I used it to protect the workers. I also created a medical support fund in Margaret's name. The fund helped employees and their families when they faced serious illness and could not afford treatment. The first payment from that fund replaced the money Emily had given me. I bought back Margaret's gold bracelet from the shop before it was sold to another person. On Emily's birthday, I placed it in a small box and gave it to her. She opened the box and began crying. "Dad, I sold this to save you. And now I am giving it back to thank you for reminding me what love looks like." I also bought her a safe, reliable car. It did not make strange sounds when she turned left. Noah received his game system too, but he made me promise that we would play together. I was terrible at the racing game. He beat me every time. Sometimes I accused him of cheating. He always laughed and said, "Grandpa, you are just old." My cancer surgery was successful. Dr. Harris removed the growth, and later tests showed that the cancer had not spread. The recovery was difficult. Some days I could barely walk across the room. Emily visited before work and after work. Noah brought me drawings and terrible jokes. Mr. Collins brought documents, even when I told him sick people should not have to read legal papers. 6 months after the surgery, I visited Daniel in prison. He entered the visiting room wearing a plain uniform. His hair was shorter and his face looked older. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "I am sorry." I looked at him. "Do you understand what you are sorry for?" He nodded. "I chose money over Mom. I chose the company over you. I used Emily's trust. I put Noah in danger. I kept telling myself I was protecting the business, but I was only protecting myself. Why did you refuse the $4,300? His eyes filled with tears. "Because Mark told me that if you had surgery and recovered, you would have time to learn about your ownership. I was scared. I also believed Emily would help you, so I convinced myself you would survive without me." That was cruel. I know. Did you want me to die? He looked directly at me. Part of me hoped the problem would disappear. I hate admitting that, but it is true. I did not plan to hurt you, but I was willing to let you suffer because your death would make my crime easier to hide. The answer hurt, but it was honest. I told him I could not forget what he had done. I could not remove the consequences. I could not pretend our family was the same. But I also told him I did not want hatred to control the rest of my life. I forgive you, I said. Forgiveness does not mean what you did was acceptable. It means I will not carry your darkness inside me forever. Daniel lowered his head and cried. When I left the prison, Emily was waiting in the car. How was he? She asked. Finally honest. Do you think he will change? I looked back at the building. I hope so, but changing is his responsibility. 1 year after that terrible night, our family gathered at my house. Emily wore Margaret's bracelet. Noah played games on the floor. I stood near the photograph of my wife in her yellow dress. For years, I had believed family loyalty meant keeping quiet and protecting people from consequences. I had been wrong. Real love speaks the truth. Real love does not help someone hide a crime. Real love does not stay silent while greed destroys a family. My revenge was not destroying Daniel. It was taking away the power his lies had over us. It was saving the company workers, protecting Emily and Noah, clearing Margaret's name, and surviving the illness he hoped would silence me. Daniel had once told me there was no money for me. In the end, I learned that money was never the most valuable thing my family had. Courage was more valuable. Truth was more valuable. And the $3,000 Emily placed on my table carried more love than Daniel's entire $14 million deal. Before you leave, like this story, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments what you think. Could you forgive Daniel after everything he did, or would the betrayal be too painful? I still visit Daniel sometimes. He is serving his sentence and taking responsibility for his actions. Our relationship may never return to what it once was, but at least it is no longer built on lies. And every morning when I wake up, I touch the scar from my surgery and remember one simple truth. Silence almost destroyed my family. Speaking up saved my life.